Honorable Monica Khanna, Madam, respected faculty members, staff members, and my dear friends, good evening and a very warm welcome to one and all present here. Today, we all have gathered here with a curiosity to learn about the first paperless Union Budget 2021-22 that was presented on Feb 1st, 2021. As Jack Liu rightly mentioned, the budget is not just a collection of numbers, but an expression of values and aspirations for the future. With the intention of improved and quality government spending, the country and its people aspire to achieve a sustained and higher growth in the economy, which will further aid in the development of the country. With the strong spotlight on health, drinking water, sanitation, and the special focus on COVID-19 vaccine, considering the current pandemic, the government has eloquently expressed the need to raise overall economic output by reducing the economic burden of illnesses. Students, the young managers, and tomorrow's leaders will gain immensely by following the budget presentation closely to understand and appreciate its importance and the impact it will have on their personal and professional lives. So today we have with us Dr. Pankaj Trivedi to share his insights on the union budget. He is the professor and area chairperson, finance and law at KJ Somaya Institute of Management and a recognized PhD guide of Somaya Vidya Vihar University. A very warm welcome, sir. We'll be starting with sir's session. So audience is requested to please keep themselves on mute. Q&A session will be conducted at the end of the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Good evening to all of you. It's my pleasure and privilege to give my thoughts on Union Budget 2021. And I would like to express my thanks first to the guest lecture committee for inviting me for this lecture and the entire student team who has worked hard for arranging everything for my guest lecture. So I will share my thoughts with respect to union budget with you. It is a matter of proud for me that director of the institute, Dr. Monica Khanna, and my esteemed faculty colleagues are also listening to me. So it is really a matter of proud for me that all of you have came to listen to me and to know my thoughts on it. So let us start with this. Let us start with the first slide. It's a short presentation where I'm trying to simplify the budget proposals which are given by the finance minister and its economic implications on our country and economy. Friends, all of you know that budget is a very important policy statement. It's a most important fiscal policy statement, and it has a far-reaching impact on the economy. What type of budget government is declaring will have direct impact on growth, inflation, income of the people, income of the government, and various other macroeconomic aspects. So that's the reason this policy statement is always creating interest in the mind of not only policymakers but also in the mind of the common people. So every year the budget is declared, but the current budget, as all of you know, is on the backdrop of COVID pandemic. And because of this pandemic, it is a big challenge. It's a big challenge for the government to came out with a balanced budget, And pandemic has affected all countries of the world. India is not an exception, as all of you know. So that's the reason this budget becomes special, because on the backdrop of the pandemic, what kind of proposals the government is giving with a view to revive the economy, that is what we have to look into this budget. So these are the major challenges which are listed out in this slide to revive the economy on the growth path. All of you must be hearing, reading so many things about adverse impact of pandemic on our economy, on our GDP. Some 29% fall in the GDP, 23%, some estimate will say. Finally, the CSO, Central Statistical Organization, came out with the figure that it will be minus 7.7% GDP will fall. So in this environment, how to bring back the economy to the growth path is one of the biggest challenge in this budget the finance minister was facing. Second most important challenge is augmentation of resources for the plant support. In the current budget, huge amount of money is proposed to spend. Now, the biggest challenge is from where these funds are to be raised. I'm sure all of you must be knowing there is no new tax proposal. So really, it's a good mathematics that they have to work out that from where the funds are to be raised to meet the planned expenditure and whatever support system that they need. So that is second big challenge. The third is enhancing the domestic demand. All of you know that for rapid growth, it is the domestic demand in our country which is very critical and playing always important role. So during the pandemic, Government of India through Atmanirbhar package and Reserve Bank of India also through appropriate monetary policy has taken adequate steps from the supply side. But from the demand side, some measures were required. So what actions and the policy measures are announced in this budget from the demand side, that is also to be seen, and that is also one of the biggest challenge to the government. And finally, generating employment. This is a very sensitive, at the same time, very critical issue for every budget, especially in the light of pandemic, where the people have lost the job and where the people are facing wage cut. This point is also a big challenge for the government. So let us see how these challenges government is trying to address through this most important fiscal policy statement called budget. The content of my presentation is mainly on these four areas. First, I'm going to talk about major thrust area in the budget. That is the first thing I will cover. Next, I will cover is that how the government has planned the growth through expenditure by allocating and by planning to spend money on different heads, how the government is planning to achieve the growth and to bring back the economy to the right path. So that will be the second part I am going to cover. The next part is growth through reforms. See, simply spending money is not enough. You need to have appropriate policy for that. Now, policies in our country are there already, but these policies need some changes and reforms depending upon the situation, depending upon the circumstances and the situations that warrants. So in this budget, what we find is there are so many measures which are taken with respect to reforms in the policy. So growth through reform, that also I'm going to cover. And finally, what are the challenges government is going to face in the way to growth? It's not that it is very easy walk. So there are some big challenges. So that also I'm going to cover in my short presentation. So let us begin with major thrust area. If you look at the budget, or if anybody will look at the budget, anybody can say there is no need to be an expert or knowing economics and finance and all that. Anybody can say that in this budget, it is major thrust on expenditure. It is expenditure driven budget. This budget can be called expenditure driven budget. And the focus is on health. Obviously, because when the country and the world is facing such a big health issue in the form of a COVID pandemic, naturally the focus should be on the health. As Prime Minister often says, Jaan hai to jahan hai. So it's a health focused budget. Another major thrust area you will find is disinvestment and privatization. Asset monetization. This word all of you must have heard often in the budget. So the another thrust area in this budget is with respect to disinvestment and privatization. One of the important source of raising the fund for this particular budget. So that is also one of the issue I'm going to cover. One more thing that also all of you must have noticed, that there is no major change in the direct tax. So that is how the balancing is done very nicely. In spite of huge amount of funds government is in need of, because government want to spend the money, still there are no major changes in direct tax. There was no imposition of any new direct tax, which people at large and even experts were expecting that certainly there will be some tax burden. But the finance minister has avoided that. So that also one of the remarkable feature of this budget. And finally, the changes which are made in the indirect taxes like custom duty and GST, they are also made keeping in mind export promotion, certainly one thing, and Atmanirbharta. This is the very important policy of the government, Atmanirbhar Bharat. So whatever changes which are suggested in indirect tax, custom duty and GST, they are with respect to these two important issues. So friends, these are the major thrust area. Now let us see some of the important announcement and how the government has planned the next year. So first I will list out growth through expenditure, as I said in the beginning. Now, as I said, health is one of the most important focus area with respect to expenditure in this budget. If you compare the expenditure which government is planning to spend on health, it is as high as 137% more than last year what the government has allocated in the budget. So obviously, because vaccination is a huge program which government has already taken up and government want to complete in shortest possible time in a vast country, not only geographically, but also in terms of population. So it will be a huge expenditure for the government to provide vaccination, to do the vaccination program and cover each and every citizen of the country. So that's the reason you can see in this slide, lakhs of crores of rupees are allocated. Total funds allocated are more than 2 lakhs crores, and only for vaccination 35,000 crores. Not only that, the finance minister has announced in the parliament that if there is a need, the government will allocate more funds for this. So on health measure, you will find maximum allocation of expenditure. Now the question is how this expenditure will help the growth, because the title is growth to expenditure, right? So how this expenditure will help the growth? See, it will help the growth in two different ways. One is it will protect the health of the people. It will make the people less vulnerable to this deadly disease. So in that way, the efficiency of the people, the productivity of the people will be ensured, and this is how there will be more growth and output. This is one. And number two, to do this vaccination, the government has also decided to create sufficient infrastructure like health lab in all the district, as you can see the points in this slide. Then there is plan to set up National Institute of Virology. Now all this spending will definitely create the jobs. It's a job creation activity. And many of these expenditure is a capital expenditure. So certainly it will be useful for job creation, employment, and growth, at the same time protecting the health of the people and thereby raising productivity and efficiency of the people. The government has also introduced what is known as Poshan Abhiyan 2.0. The details are awaited, but huge amount of money the government is planning to spend even to ensure nutrition level to the masses of our country. So this is one of the major thrust area in the budget and the expenditure area in the budget. The second area where you find large amount of money is allocated is infrastructure development. Now, as far as importance of infrastructure for rapid economic growth is concerned, I think I need not speak anything. Everybody knows the significance of infrastructure. Everybody knows the significance of uninterrupted power not only for industry, but even for the household, for the transport. Everybody knows significance of road, railway, port, airport. Everybody knows this, communication facility. So a country, if it wants to grow the fast, then it need to have sufficient infrastructure that every students of economics and finance knows. Nowadays, even every layman is aware of. So in this budget, what you find, huge amount of money is allocated, especially for roads and highways, because it will give connectivity. As you know, India is geographically very vast country. Yeah. And India is a country of villages. We have nearly 6 lakhs villages in the country. Now, connectivity to these villages is the biggest challenge. There are many villages in the country which are not having proper roads. There are many even district level and taluka level where the road condition is not excellent. So huge amount of money government has decided to spend in this budget for construction of highways, roads, and railway. So friends, this is also going to generate huge amount of employment and growth in the economy. In fact, it is a boost. It is a big boost. It is a big push for the growth. As in economics, always we used to say, Keynes used to say, I always remember Keynes. Keynes used to say, dig the well and fill them up, dig the well and fill them up. I mean, some activity, you know. So when these projects, rural infrastructure project, construction of road project, developing railway line, connectivity, north-west, east-west, north-south, east coast, all this spending when the government will do, definitely it will help the business industry to grow. It will create more jobs, and in the process, the GDP will grow. Right? There is a criticism with respect to this also. You know, there are some people, they will find out criticism from every measure which the government will announce. So there is a criticism with respect to this also, that why this benefit is given to the selected states and all that. But anyway, overall development of the country, you need to take into account. One of the most important characteristics with respect to infrastructure development and the spending, which I want to emphasize and highlight, is that here the capital expenditure is a substantial part, nearly 26%. So capital expenditure, again, I need not tell to the students of MBA who are in the audience, and of course many other people also knows, this is the expenditure which will give you benefit in the future for the long period of time. The nature of capital expenditure is that creation of assets. It is creation of assets. So this will give benefit in the future for a long period of time. So this is something which is a very unique feature to my mind, because if there is a more revenue expenditure, then the impact would have been less. But here, since it is a capital expenditure, certainly it would have positive impact on the economy. The next big head is with respect to inclusive development. Friends, all of you know, if you pick up and if you take any government policy nowadays, the word financial inclusion and inclusive growth, invariably you will find. Just before this talk, I was taking the class of financial inclusion and public policy. If those students are here in this talk also, then they would be able to relate. So for financial inclusion, lot many measures are taken in this budget. And friends, in country like India, where even now nearly 30% of the population is below poverty line, a country like India, where nearly 60% of the population is residing in the rural areas, you can't ignore financial inclusion measures. In fact, the real development is that when it will reach to the last person of the society. If you read the Gandhian philosophy, then you will understand this well. Gandhiji always used to talk about Sarvodaya, welfare of last person of the society. Sarva ka uday. He always used to say like this, right? So you can't ignore this. Inclusive development, you can't ignore. And the spending which the government is planning for inclusive development is always justified, provided if it is reaching to the right and targeted people. For that also, so many measures are taken by the government so that this money will reach to the targeted people. Anyway, just look at that. So to begin with, for the farm sector, huge amount of money is allocated. 16.5 lakhs crores for the credit flow to the farm sector. And it is required, no doubt. In our country, farmers are getting maximum benefit, right? It is a subject of debate, right? But certainly it is justified because repeatedly I am telling you, large population of our country are getting their bread and butter. I don't know whether they are getting butter, but at least they are getting bread from this particular sector. Of course, in farm sector also we have a lot of disparity. On one hand, we have very rich, large and affluent farmers. And on the other hand, we have farmers who are living in a miserable condition. So these inequalities is also to be looked upon. But large amount of money is allocated for this sector for the benefit of particularly small and marginal farmers. Rural development, another huge amount of money the government is planning to spend. So these kind of spending on rural development, irrigation project will definitely generate employment. It will definitely lead to growth. Even during these long pandemic months, it is the agriculture sector which has performed well. Maybe because of the less density of population in the rural areas or whatever. But agriculture sector did very well. So huge amount of money is allocated for giving credits to the farmer so that further productive activities can be generated. The income of the farmer, government is planning to double within a short period of time for rural development, for minor irrigation projects. All these activity will lead to generation of employment through the scheme like Manrega. As all of you know, for these rural projects, Manrega scheme works. So that is a positive sign of this particular budget. And one more thing I wanted to highlight. For so many years in India, whenever you are talking about agriculture sector, farm sector, it was actual farming which was emphasized. But since last couple of budget, what you are noticing is the allied activities, agriculture sector and allied to agriculture sector like dairy, animal husbandry, and fishing is also emphasized. 5 big fishing port government has planned to develop during this particular budget. All of you must be knowing. So this is something which is important because not only farmers, the rural masses who are engaged in these kind of allied sector also need support. Another important inclusive development measure that you see is with respect to textile. With respect to textile, government has decided to set up 7 textile parks and huge amount of money is allocated for that. Same way MSME. Can you ignore MSME in country like India, where slightly less than 1/3, nearly 32% of the GDP is coming from MSME sector. Nearly 45% of the export, as high as almost 50, you can say. Nearly 45% of the India's export is coming from MSME, and a sector which is giving job to nearly 11 million people. Nearly 6 crores MSME we have. You can't ignore MSME. Any help to the MSME will definitely help the country to grow fast. In fact, this is a particular sector which will definitely contribute for the rapid growth and bringing back the economy to the main path. That's the reason you must have also noticed that during the lockdown months, during the May, June, July, etc., even RBI has come out with various schemes which has helped MSME a lot in terms of liquidity, influxing liquidity for the MSME. So this spending is also going to have good and positive impact on the economy. So these are some of the good measures of growth through expenditure. Now let us talk about growth through reforms. Because as I said, simply spending money is not enough. You have to spend money in right way. And for that purpose, you need right policy. Policies are always subject to change. policy cannot be static. At the same time, policy cannot be too much dynamic also. So at right time, right changes in the policy is important. And that is what you can see in this budget. So this slide, which is my favorite slide because this is my area, banking and finance. So some landmark and very important and long awaited, I will use this word, long awaited changes in the financial and banking sector. To begin with, the initiating security market code for reforms. Our security market is having its own code, its own law, like SEBI Act, Security Contract Regulation Act, we have Depository Act, Government Securities Act. These acts are having certain anomalies. These acts are having certain limitations. So in this budget, the government has shown their commitment to make appropriate changes in this act, which will help the market to grow, which will bring confidence in the investor, which will bring more money to the mainstream of the economy in the organized sector. So this is one of the major policy reform change which will help the country to attract more funds to the market, and the industries and the business would find it relatively easy to mobilize the fund from the market. So that is one. Same way, for investor protection, the government is planning to come out with investor charter. This is also to build the confidence and reputation of the financial market of the country, and that will help to attract more and more investors. So this is also one of the major and big policy reform change I can say. The next is the game changer, I would say. FDI in insurance sector is raised. Since long, insurance companies were emphasizing on that, and various experts were also suggesting to the government that there is a need to increase the limit in the insurance sector. So that demand is met in this budget. Now the FDI limit is raised to 74%. This will definitely attract investment, foreign direct investment in our country. Because all of you must be knowing that India is a country where insurance penetration is very low. If you talk about life insurance, it is less than 5%. That low it is. So because insurance penetration is very low, because the level of education and income of the people is gradually, not rapidly though, gradually is increasing, the foreign financial companies, insurance companies particularly, they will find ample market for their business in India. And that's the reason they would love to come to India. And definitely you will find good inflow of FDI in this sector. Now here also, the critic will say something. Critic will say that you will lose the control. So that's the reason finance minister has clarified that though the sector is opened up, but the control will be retained in terms of 50% independent director and local directors and all that. Those details you can definitely get from the budget speech of the finance minister. So by retaining the control, at the same time attracting the foreign fund, that is one of the important reform. The next reform is about the bad bank. You must have heard so much debate and talk about the bad bank, right? So ultimately, the node is given for bad bank also. Let us start with the bad bank. Of course, if you ask my personal view, I have got a different opinion. Bad bank is not a permanent solution or very effective solution for large non-performing assets in our banking sector. In our banking sector, I think all of you must be knowing, we have large amount of bad loans, what we call technically in finance non-performing assets. So what is this bad bank? It's an SPV, one institution, special purpose vehicle, which is to be created, and the banks with the bad loans will transfer these bad loans to this institution technically called asset reconstruction company. In layman's language, we call it bad bank. In the language of finance, it is called asset reconstruction company. So we already have this. It's not that this is some new idea or something like that. We already have this. But now the government is planning to create one more bad bank, and clearing the balance sheet, cleaning the balance sheet of the banks which are overloaded with the bad loans. But friends, as I said, I have got a different view. This is not a permanent solution as such. This is simply you are transferring the problem of the banks with high NPA to this bad bank. And we are expecting that the bad bank in turn will be able to recover, or in turn will be able to sell it further, because at international market, even there is a parallel market for the bad loans and all that. So anyway, not very effective, but certainly one thing is certain, the banks will be able to clear their balance sheet, which is loaded with the non-performing assets. So that is one of the good policy reform, I would say. Another policy reform is capitalization of public sector banks by 20,000 crores. Now, 20,000 crores seems to be a very large amount. No doubt, by any standard, it is a large amount. But if you look at the need of capital which is required to be influxed into the public sector banks of India, it is much larger than this. And in the past budget also, if you look at last 5 budget, then in every budget except the last budget, in the last budget it was not there. In every budget, almost every budget, government is giving capital to the public sector bank. Yeah. So because the public sector bank is owned by the government has to give money to the public sector bank, right? 20,000 crores is not sufficient. If you take into account, there is something called Basel III requirement. Internationally, there is an institution called Bank of International Settlement. They came out with the norms for better banking and financial system. So under those Basel norms, there are some adequate capital which is emphasized. So if you look at those Basel III norms, now Basel III is in running. So if you take into account Basel III, then these 20,000 crores will not be sufficient. But anyway, some movement is noticed here and some investment is made. Same way, disinvestment in public sector bank and insurance company. So we are talking about privatization. We are talking about reducing the holding of the government from public sector undertakings. So government has shown their intention to disinvest public sector bank, which is long awaited. Same way, one of the insurance company, general insurance company, long awaited. The experts of various committees, time and again, they have recommended that it is not a business of the government to do business. They say like this. It is not a business of a government to do the business. What is the business of the government is to governance, isn't it? Or govern or governance. Yeah. So various expert panel and committees, task force, time to time, they have given the recommendations that it is to be started. But certainly the government is facing opposition from trade union and various other political parties. And this is also, subject to debate whether it should be done or not. But at least one more step in the right direction, I would say. And the last point of this slide, that is also very critical, development financial institutions, which is absolutely required for infrastructure growth of our country. I'm sure all of you must be knowing that for infrastructure development, you have to depend more on debt financing. Equity financing will not work in infrastructure development. Debt financing is required. And for that purpose, you need an institutions which give long-term funding, right? Banks cannot give long-term funding because there will be issue of asset liability mismatch. I am sure those who are finance faculties and the students, they are aware of all this thing, but this is for the non-finance people. Banks cannot give long-term funding. So there was a need for a development finance institution. India used to have earlier, all of you must be knowing, IDBI, ICICI. Nowadays, they are converted into commercial bank. So again, we have realized the importance of development financial institution, and government has decided to set up the development financial institutions in the country. So that is also one of the very good policy reform which will help to boost the infrastructure development in the country. Coming to the next slide, labor, education, and innovation reform. as I said, growth through reform. So certain measures you will find in this budget, which are very new and unique with respect to reforms in this area. The most important and the topmost, which I have put up on this slide, one nation, one ration card. Friends, to my mind, this is also a game changer, let me tell you. One nation, one ration card is one of the major reform, and this will help the migrant workers to the maximum. Reason because the migrant worker in India, they are facing problem with respect to getting the food at a subsidized rate, right? Because originally they are located and they are placed in some villages. Their original address is in some village, but because they have migrated to the cities and town, they don't have permanent address. Therefore, they cannot have ration card, with the result that they are deprived of this benefit. But when the country will go for one nation, one ration card, definitely it will help the migrant workers. So this is one of the very big and the best reform, I would say. Second is identifying what is known as gig worker. This is a new term. This is relatively new term. I'm sure many of you must be knowing. The workers who are temporary, the workers who are on the contract, they are called gig workers. So identifying the gig workers and give them social security benefits like minimum wages and insurance, employee state insurance scheme. In this budget, this announcement is made, and that is also for the benefit of the labor, and certainly it will help for the inclusive growth. Same way for tea plantation. For tea plantation, there are women workers. In most of the tea gardens, women workers are working. For the benefit of those women workers, there is a scheme introduced, and that is also one of the very important reform measure, I would say. Same way for startup innovation, to encourage innovation and startup, 15%, the margin money, when they take loan, they have to give some margin money. So the requirement of the margin money is also reduced from higher percentage. Earlier it was 25%, now it is reduced to 15%. That will encourage more and more startup in the country. Yeah. One more important change with respect to policy that you find, and that is in the education sector, the sector which is relating to us. The sector which is relating to us. Just a moment, huh? Just a moment. So this higher education commission, setting up of the higher education commission is also one of the very important reform, because all of you are in education field, you know, there are multiple regulators in our country. We have multiple regulators, and when there are multiple regulators, there is bound to be a conflict of interest. There is bound to be a different policies, you know, completely opposite policies of one another. All this will have impact on our education sector. So to streamline all these things, higher education commission government has proposed. That is also one of the very important reform to my mind. Okay, and look at the last point, financial incentive to promote digital payment, right? Nowadays, we are talking about everything in the form of a digital, right? If we talk about digital, then you find even, I'm talking about education sector, admission digital, examination digital, everything we are talking about digital. So for reaching out to the masses in the rural areas, for financial inclusion, digital payment is very important policy. And here, for the first time, the government has came out with an incentive to be given to those companies who will encourage the digital payment. So these are some of the new ideas that you will find in this budget. So these are reforms with respect to labor, innovation, education, etc. The next reform that I would like to put is with respect to tax. See, tax is one of the area where always there is a need for reform. All right. whatever may be the country. It is not something unique in India. Time to time, government is trying their best to reform the tax. And when we say tax reform, it is not only with respect to rate of tax or the slab, but some other aspects also. So in this budget, what you find with respect to other aspect of taxation, several reform measures you can see here. So to start with, contractual dispute resolution scheme. In case there is any dispute the taxpayer is having with respect to the tax department, to resolve that dispute, there is a scheme which the government is planning or proposed to plan, right? Similarly, dispute resolution committee for small taxpayers. If you want to increase the tax base, then these are some of the critical things. Number one is your tax system should be simple. Your rate should be reasonable. Not only that, there should be proper system of grievance redressal. So on this front, the government has proposed several measures, right? Same way, to benefit the NRIs so that there will be more inflow of funds in the form of a remittance, particularly in the form of a remittance. For NRI, several changes are proposed in the tax, particularly avoiding double tax. NRI of India was facing the problem of double tax. Many of your family members, friends, relatives may be NRI. So you may be aware of this particular problem. So in this budget, it is proposed that all those anomalies and all those problems will be sorted out. Same way, the period for reopening of your tax return that you have filed is also reduced. This will help to reduce uncertainties. So for example, this year you have filed the tax return, right? Now, earlier for 10 years, there was uncertainty. Within 10 years, anytime government can open that tax return again, and you will be asked the justification and all that. Of course, that will not be done for the small taxpayers. Actually, government is not bothered about small taxpayers, but the government is more concerned about the big fish, you know. But even then, there used to be a lot of uncertainty. So this period is also reduced to 3 years. So this reforms, not in the form of a tax rate or a slab, but other than that, what is known as tax administration. Reforms with respect to tax administration is also something new that you find in this particular budget. Same way, reforms with respect to advance tax of the dividend income, right? Now, this is also not more applicable to a small investor, but those companies and mutual funds who are investing large amount of money, certainly they cannot plan, their advance tax calculation, because dividend payment is always uncertain. Dividend payment decision company will take at the end of the year, and the company and the mutual funds have to pay the advance tax and all that. So for that reason also, the changes, appropriate changes which are made, they are also very good change to my mind. And when we talk about tax, we have to also talk about what changes are made with respect to indirect taxes. So under indirect taxes, the most important thing that you find is outdated exemptions from custom duty are removed. The government has removed certain old and outdated exemptions. The exact figure is also given in the parliament. 80 such outdated exemptions are removed, and government is reviewing another 400 such exemptions, and that also they are planning to change. So they are rationalizing, they are modernizing, and they are making the tax system appropriate. So that will also help our country to grow fast, and it will bring back the economy to the right path. So friends, these are the reform measures with respect to expenditure and with respect to reforms, how the country can come back to the growth path. Now, the last part of my presentation, and that is challenges. In this process, the government is also facing several challenges. So let us talk about those challenges. The first and foremost is the fiscal position, which in every budget is always debated. The revised estimate, if you look at the revised estimate of fiscal deficit 2021, it is much higher. It is at 9.5%. Now I have to use several jargons. I have to use, but don't worry. I will simplify those jargons in a very simple layman's language for those who are not aware of. For those who are aware of the jargon, they will enjoy. For those who are not aware of the jargon, they will understand. That care I will take, right? So, fiscal deficit, to put in a simple language, fiscal deficit is nothing but it will tell you to what extent government depends upon borrowed fund. That is fiscal deficit. If fiscal deficit is more, it means government is depending more on borrowed fund. And here you can understand this easily with personal finance. Personal finance, all of you are aware of. If an individual is depending more on borrowed fund rather than his own income, then we can say that his financial position is weak. It is as simple as that. Same logic is applied and same thing is applied to the government. When the government is depending more on borrowed fund, when the fiscal deficit is higher, it means financial position of the government is not strong, right? Now, what is ideal fiscal deficit? That is again subject of debate. In fact, in India, we have Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, right? So depending upon the size of your economy, to some extent, fiscal deficit can be digested by the economy, right? Now, 9.5% is little on the higher side. In India, if it is in the range of 3%, if it is less than 3%, excellent. But in the range of 3%, it is considered to be a balanced position. So 9.5%, this year it is higher. Now here, people are criticizing, but let me tell you, friend, it is quite obvious. In the pandemic year, there is bound to be higher fiscal deficit. Why? Because expenditure of the government is higher. Why expenditure of the government is higher? It is the responsibility of the government to take care of the people during pandemic time. 800 million people are provided free foods for months together. मुझे एक पूरे वर्ल्ड में ऐसा दिखाओ. You show me in the world. 800 million people are provided food. 80 million people are provided cooking gas free of charge, right? 400 million farmers were given benefit. So there is bound to be a huge amount of money government has to spend during the pandemic time to take care of the people who are vulnerable and who are badly affected. So that's the reason expenditure is higher. On the income front, tax revenue is less. You can see the points in the slide. Fall in the tax revenue collection by 18%, tax revenue and 45% non-tax revenue. Naturally, there will be fall in the revenue because this was a very unique pandemic. You cannot come out of your house, forget about production, forget about service, forget about anything. You cannot talk to anyone. You cannot come out of your house. So naturally, business, industry, economic activities will be affected. When it will be affected, income of the government will also be affected. So, due to fall in the income and increase in expenditure, fiscal deficit bound to be more, right? It is not the fault of the government. See, if I don't know whether you heard my earlier talks on the budget, usually I am a critic of higher fiscal deficit. Let me tell you, I am a critic of higher fiscal deficit because it is inflationary and particularly non-productive expenditure when the government spend. I am really critic of that. But this year I will not because the situation is different. So there is bound to be higher fiscal deficit and the next year target is also higher because do you think that this pandemic effect will be solved within next 6 months or 3 months or so? No. It will take at least couple of years to be a normal situation on economic front and fiscal deficit front. So even next year target is also little on the higher side. But you can't help in this kind of situation. You can't help. But don't be under the impression that government is not serious about the fiscal discipline. Government is serious about this fiscal discipline and they have put up the target to reach up to 4.5% in the next 4 years. So fiscal deficit is one of the biggest challenge that the government will have, and the challenge is further shown in the next slide. To meet this higher expenditure, whatever expenditure slides that I have shown you, on health, large amount of money, for infrastructure, large amount of money, for poverty alleviation, and financial inclusion, large amount of money, right? For all these purpose, when the situation is income is less and expenditure is more, government is having no other option but to borrow the funds. Government is having no other option but to go for asset monetization. Asset monetization means selling the assets. Yeah. So this year, the government is still planning to borrow 12 lakhs crores. Still in the couple of remaining months, 12 lakhs crores. That is what the figure announced by Nirmala Sitharaman in the parliament, right? In addition to this, 4% state government deficit. So they will also come to the market to borrow the fund. In addition to this, commercial credit is showing gradual sign of picking up. I think all of you must be knowing our industrial production, index of industrial production is also showing slight rise, isn't it? Recovery, slight recovery is noticed. So there will be credit offtake and credit pickup for commercial purpose also. So all this will have impact on the interest rate. So this is one of the challenge, to my mind, the government will have to face. It will definitely have impact on the interest rate. Interest rate is going to shoot up because there is a huge withdrawal of money from the market by the government, central government, state government, and private sector as well. So interest rate is going to be up. Okay. And when interest rate goes up, it becomes the responsibility of the RBI. It is not the responsibility of the government. It's the responsibility of the RBI. So RBI has to monitor. RBI has to check this higher interest rate by adopting appropriate monetary policy. And that is the biggest challenge. And that is the test of the governor. Let me tell you, that is the test of the governor. Because if the interest rate will shoot up, then it will increase the cost of production and the industry will be affected. Immediately, trade association and chambers of commerce will object. So this balancing would be a challenge. So that is one of the issue I wanted to highlight before you. Second big challenge is the resource mobilization. As I said, when your income level is falling because of the less economic activity, even then the finance minister has made a very realistic target for the next year, 21-22, 15% revenue collection she has estimated to be increased. Very realistic, taking into account size of the economy. So in such situation, there is no other option but to think of asset monetization. In simple language, asset monetization in simple language, selling the assets, right? But mind you, you have to sell that assets which are underutilized, which are unproductive. You can't sell productive assets, right? But again, here also, the critics will immediately start criticizing that government is planning to sell the assets and trying to raise the fund. But friends, across the globe, in such difficult time, there are no other measures than to do these kind of activities to raise the fund. So the disinvestment target fixed by the government in the budget is 1.75 lakhs crores. It is very optimistic, let me tell you. It will be difficult for the government to meet this target because if you look at the targets of disinvestment of last few years budget, never government is able to meet the target, right? So this year also, I have an apprehension that it will be difficult. Ultimately, the government have to depend on the borrowed fund or increase the tax in the probably next budget or something like that, right? For example, if you look at this slide, last year, the disinvestment target set was 2.1 lakh crore. But what was the actual disinvestment then? Only 20,000 crores. Now you can say that was because of the pandemic, I can understand. But the gap is too high, isn't it? That's the reason I said, even if you look at the past few years target, you will find the same thing, targets are not met, right? So this is one of the point where I would say that it will be slightly difficult. The mathematics will be slightly difficult for the government to raise the fund. Huge amount of money government is planning to spend, but raising of the fund through this route will be slightly difficult. And therefore, they have to depend upon what is known as the borrowing, and that will have its own impact on the economy. Yeah. So limited option, government is having limited option, and therefore I would say that there is no harm in selling those assets which are unproductive. See, government is not going to sell any productive assets. That is also made very clear. Even the Niti Aayog is also involved. Niti Aayog is involved here to identify which assets are to be sold. We have Disinvestment Commission in India that is also involved. So only unproductive assets government is planning to sell, not the productive assets, right? And again, the critics are criticizing that now you are going for the benefit to the large industrialist and all that. The fixed economy, I mean the mixed economy, the mixed economy nature of the country is not going to change. Yeah. So this is what I wanted to talk about, my comment on the budget. And finally, at the end, this is my end note. Let me conclude that usually budget is judged on the basis of how much tax is increased. I'm sure you will agree with me. Whenever any budget is declared, whether it is a state budget or union budget or municipality, today in Mumbai municipality we have budget, right? So any budget when it is declared, usually it is judged based on how much tax is increased, based on how much price level is expected to rise, isn't it? Inflation, because that is a concern of a common man, there is no doubt about it, and it will have impact on the economy also. So usually budget is judged on those criteria, but now the criteria to judge the budget is changed. Now the criteria of budget to judge the efficiency and the better budget is growth generating capacity of the budget, right? And this is because of Vikas, which is a mantra given by the Prime Minister, isn't it? Only one objective, and that is Vikas. Only one objective, and that is development. So now the budget is judged based on what kind of development measures are taken here. So friends, I already talked to you. Development measures through expenditure, development measures through policy reform, both I have talked to you, okay? And the courage of the finance minister, the courage of the government is seen here. And for that purpose, I remember my favorite economist, Keynes. This is a famous quotation of the Keynes. Keynes used to say, the difficulty lies not so much in developing new ideas as in escaping from the old one. So what you find in this budget, they have shown the courage to leave the old ideas. See, innovative, new ideas, they keep on doing. That you find many things. But old ideas, to come out of the old ideas, that is what you are observing in this budget. And that is what the Keynes, I can see, Keynes ka jhalak, in this particular budget. So friends, with this word, I will conclude, and I am open for the questions. Thank you very much to the guest committee. Thank you very much to the students who have done a lot of effort to make this talk successful and all that. And thank you very much to Director Madam, my privilege. You are one of the listener to this, and my faculty colleagues, and of course, always students, friends. One more thing I wanted to tell you, student must have found that many of such things I often talk in the class also, isn't it, right? Anyway, thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we'll be moving with question and answers.
Sure.
So the first question we are taking from Isaac Jacob, sir. He's asking, infrastructure capex expenditure is higher by 26%.
Yeah.
This expenditure has long gestation period.
Yeah.
What would be effect on short-term inflationary pressures?
Short-term?
Inflationary pressures.
Short-term inflationary pressure. Yeah. Yes. See, for reducing the impact of short-term inflationary pressure, the government has taken enough measure from supply side. You see, say for example, large amount of money is allocated for the MSME sector. Large amount of money is reserved for agriculture sector. So when MSME will increase their output, when output from the agriculture sector will also increase, that will take care of this inflation, which is slightly going to be there because of the capex. You see, the inflation is because of the mismatch between demand and supply, right? So supply side measure is also taken in this budget. So with the result that inflation would be checked. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So the next question is from Mohit Dixit. He's asking, IPO of LIC and BPCL are productive assets and they are privatized by the government. What can be the rationale behind this?
Yeah. See, as I said, when any disinvestment decision will be taken, it will be reviewed properly. Without proper review, it will not be done. Though it is announced by the finance minister in the budget, I mean in the parliament, but what is the proportion of the investment which will be open to the public, that we have to look at, and that they have not yet decided. So it is not that they are going to substantially reduce the holding from BPCL or from LIC. The government is not going to reduce the holding substantially. Small portion they are going to offload into the market. And let me tell you, to bring the efficiency, even that is also required. You see, typical public sector problem is wastage and inefficiency also. Now, if you want to plug this inefficiency and wastage problem, then there should be some amount of privatization. So on that front, it will be taken care of. So it is not that the entire the units will be sold or something like.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Monica Khanna ma'am is asking that the failure rate of startups is very high. Should
That's
there,
true.
yeah, should there not be mechanisms to evaluate and rate startups so that good money is not wasted?
Correct. See, the success rate of startup, as madam says, is very true. You know, it is how much? It is just 1%. 99% of the startup fails and 1% success. Yeah. So why this is so? This is because of technological support and administrative, managerial, marketing skill is required. Simply idea and thought is not enough. Simply getting fund from some funding agency is not enough. Whatever product that you are going to make or services that you are going to render, how you will market that service, how you will sustain, that is important. And here lies the role of skill development. Here lies this role of various schemes whereby the government is planning to give technical support and managerial support to the startup also. So that is to be looked at, and that is to be strengthened. Then the success rate in the startup will increase.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anmol Agarwal is asking, sir, you yourself said economy will take around 2 years to improve.
Yes.
So as an MBA student, how should I be looking or strategizing my approach towards the job market in next fiscal?
Answer is very simple. At present, in the current situation, getting job and retaining job is important, right? So you take the job, whatever job that you are getting, you just take the job. Don't look for the profile, don't look for the brand, for two reasons. See, I'm not saying that you take any brand and any profile. Everybody wants to work with a good company. Everybody wants good profile, no doubt about it. But for two reasons in the current situation, you should take up. You have two strengths with you. All MBA student, please listen. Two strong point you have with you. Number one, your degree. And number two, your age. At this age, you can take risks, right? Work for a couple of years, change the job, and have confidence. Definitely, you will get good job. Definitely, you will get the job of your choice. But if you leave the campus without job, that is not good. That is not good. That is not correct, right? So it will take, definitely it will take couple of years. But again, you see, if you look at the industrial output, if you look at GDP in general, it has started recovering. Okay. Only certain sectors are lagging behind. Okay. So look at the sector from which you are getting the job, and accordingly you can take the decision. But this is what my answer will be.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
That were positive words for an MBA student. Okay, so the next question is, there hasn't been any direct relief to middle class. Would you please like to comment on this?
Yes, because I am also middle class. Yeah, that's the reason. Certainly, I would like to give the comment. See, there is no direct relief, no doubt about this. Okay. But again, in this time, you can't expect that direct relief also. People are always expecting increasing the threshold limit. reduction in the tax rate, and there is nothing wrong in that, right? But looking at the current situation where expenditure of the government is substantially increased because of the pandemic, when there is no relief given to the middle class, I will not say that it is not a good budget. Otherwise, definitely I will say that inflation control should be one of the priority for any budget, right? In fact, inflation is an indirect tax only. It is one type of tax only on the middle class. So, direct benefit is not given, but when the economy will grow, definitely some indirect benefit the middle class will get. In the current situation, you can't expect.
So another question from Aviral Mehta. He's asking, so tax increase on petrol and diesel are rupees 2.5 and rupees 4 in
Right.
this budget.
Right.
Although government is saying that it won't impact general public, but how it will be levied and
Yeah.
how will it impact us?
Yeah, right. This question I was expecting because petrol is a very sensitive commodity and it has got far-reaching impact on the economy. Yeah. Now, see, government has said that this will not impact the people. This will not have final impact on the price and all that. But that mechanism they have not yet explained. First of all, let me tell you that. Okay. Secondly, here the thing, the decision is taken in this way. See, the agriculture cess is increased on the petrol, right? And at the same time, the excise duty is reduced. If you go to the nitty-gritties of the petroleum tax, excise duty is reduced by the government, central excise duty, and the agriculture cess is increased, right? Now, why this is done, because the collection of cess, central government can keep with themselves. Whereas there are certain tax revenue which the government has to share with the state government as per the recommendation of the Finance Commission. So that aspect is reduced where the central government has to share with the state government. And that aspect is retained, which the entire income central government will be able to keep with themselves. So with this thought, this changes is made. So because that excise duty is reduced and the sales is increased, that's the reason government is saying that there will not be any impact on the final consumer. I hope you have understood.
Yes.
One type of tax is increased, cess. Another type of tax is reduced. So there will be balancing effect. That is what the government is saying. But as I said, still the nitty-gritty is not clear. We have to wait for that. Okay. And this is done because the central government have to share less revenue with the state government.
Okay, so we have many questions, but we'll be taking last two now.
No problem. Yes, I would be glad
Okay.
to answer. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So Devansh Mehta is asking, with high fiscal deficit and no additional sources of revenue for the government, how will the government reach its target of 6.5%?
That is what I am saying. The government in the current budget is heavily depending on disinvestment and privatization, disinvestment and asset monetization. So that will definitely be a challenge. Your point is very valid, right? Because as I have shown in the presentation also, that this target meeting is difficult and challenging. Is that clear? Always for the government to meet this target is difficult. So how the government will meet this huge expenditure is a question. And then finally, there is no other option but to depend either on borrowing, one, or to increase the tax in the subsequent budget, something like that. Yeah, because there is no magic whereby you can create money. And if you try to create money by, printing money, what people are called helicopter money and, printing deficit financing and all that, again, it will be inflationary. So there also balancing is to be done. Yeah. So it is a challenge. Raising the fund, it is a challenge. Let me tell you, that's the only negative point I found in this budget. But at the same time, I will say they have very limited option. They can't increase the tax, right? In such time, they can't increase the tax. They can't reduce the expenditure. So on expenditure front, they don't have flexibility. On tax front, they don't have flexibility. So what is the option? Borrowing is the only option.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So the next question is from Krishna. She's asking, before the budget, a lot of hopes were pinned around the cryptocurrency and related regulations. However, in a 2 hour long budget, there was no mention of cryptocurrency. Why do you feel was there no mention of virtual currency when a lot of global players have already accepted it?
Correct. See, let me tell you my view. Here, I would like to give my view. I 100% endorse the action and the view of the government. Cryptocurrency is not to be encouraged. Let me tell you. And the government is planning to come out with the legislation in the budget session, in the current session, to ban the cryptocurrency from India. That is absolutely required. A country where 65% of the population, as high as 65% of the population, don't understand the finance, right? Forget about cryptocurrency. People don't understand stock market. People don't understand other financial complexities. In such country, if cryptocurrency is encouraged, then there will be a lot of fraud. There will be a lot of people who will lose their hard-earned money, and there will be lot many issues. So that's the reason government will never talk about cryptocurrency in a very important and serious fiscal policy statement like budget. Though several countries of the world might have adopted that, but I would say government should not go for it. What is cryptocurrency? It is like a game. Something, it is like something, let me explain to you. It is like a stone. Now, for that stone, somebody is ready to pay 50,000 rupees, 60,000 rupees. Now, how can you give such a huge value for something which has a no base? When you talk about legal tender currency, rupees or dollar or any legal tender, it has a strong base. It has a strong support of the government. In cryptocurrency, somebody who knows some algorithmic or some mathematics algorithm in computer, he will create some toy kind of thing, and then he will start selling at whatever price that you want, and people also madly will invest in that, right? So I'm sorry to put my views very bluntly, but cryptocurrency should not be encouraged in country like.
Thank you so much, sir, for this view.